Okay, so you just heard about that new research showing why the first 45 words that a police officer says during a traffic stop of a black driver can predict how that encounter will end. My panel has a lot to say about this. Natasha, what did you think as you listened to the professor there?
I'm going to be anecdotal for a moment because I felt a lot watching that video. I remember being 6 years old, my parents being pulled over, my father not driving, but being asked for his ID, and that aggressiveness in the tone of voice of the officer. I remember that at 6 years old, 5, 6 years old. And years later, having those same experiences as an adult. So what is it about the way that police officers, no matter their color, because again, race, you can still be racist if you are a black officer, when you encounter a black person, that you feel this need for aggressiveness, right? That you feel that you don't have to talk to them maybe the way that you would talk to someone else. The drivers feel that. So I'm glad that the study, took a formal approach to it, but I think ultimately we're saying that human beings are human beings. You feel someone approach you with aggression, distrust, and that can lead to fear, that can lead to anxiety, that can lead to an escalation. So to me, it confirmed what I feel I've always known.
Yeah. I thought it was very interesting, Doug, what she was saying. She sort of corrected me there, well, my supposition there at the end, where she basically wanted us to know, no, it's the police officers that are escalating. The police officers are escalating it more than the drivers are escalating.
And it's just common sense. When anybody has a police officer, if you get pulled over for a traffic ticket, if they're taking a harsh attitude at you, you get rattled. You're not sure what you're going to do. And I think is equally bad what happens to Latinos in America. But the fact with sometimes the language barrier, and suddenly a policeman comes up and starts shouting something and they don't understand and aren't following. And I would love to see a study done on Mexican Americans in Arizona, California, that are constantly being pulled over because of the color of their skin, on the thought that they're illegals, and some of them are been here 4 generations Americans, and they're being abused by police in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, they were pointing out that it's the linguistics of this, which I think is fascinating. Hari?
I think what frustrated me most is the need for a study like this. It's basically like, here is evidence that racism exists. Like, you were talking about your stories and like the anecdotal evidence. Like, I have enough friends with anecdotal evidence, and that means that people aren't listening. People don't believe it until they see it, and we need numbers. I'll let you know when it's racism. That's what I feel like America is saying. And the idea that you need numbers to back something that everyone kind of knows, who's experienced it, is kind of absurd.
So this study actually isn't about racism. It only dealt with black drivers to begin with. And that's actually one thing I like about this study, is that it's constructive. It's asking the question, what do police officers do wrong and what do they do right to escalate or de-escalate these encounters? So I think a lot more research like this is needed. Now, one complication of this study is that they looked at what drivers said and held that constant, but they didn't look at what drivers or police officers did, right? That's what I'm curious about as well, because half of these encounters, it's not just what you say, it's what you do. So I want to know, does it affect an encounter when a police officer has his hand on his gun to begin with?
I'd say yes.
Does it, well look, we all may have our gut instincts, but that's the whole point of this research, right? Does it affect an encounter when a driver has their hands in their pockets or on the steering wheel? Because all that stuff, knowing that kind of thing, gives me power as a driver to influence an interaction, and gives the cops more information, the cops that want to do their best job, more information about how to do it well.
Yeah.
I think if it's a study about black drivers, though, this is about race in America. Yes. I don't think that we can separate those things, right? And as I said before, it doesn't matter the color of the police officer. If you have a perception of black bodies as being criminalized, as being more aggressive, it's a message that we constantly see throughout the media that can inform the way that you do your job, in the same way that happens in classrooms with teachers who adultify black children or punish them more harshly. So although this study may not have explicitly said that it's about racism, I think when we do this analysis, we have to confront that. We have to unpack that. We have to talk about the different ways that manifests, because black people are disproportionately profiled and we die because of these encounters.
And we'll see if police departments will be able to use this research and if they're able to make any inroads into different police departments. Thank you all very much. We'll be right back.